Hey y'all, so tonight was a night I have been waiting for a very long time, multiple years in fact. Today was the return of American Crime Story, the third season, titled Impeachment, which is following all of these scandals that led up to Bill Clinton's impeachment hearings. This series has a lot to cover, one of the things being impeachment, several of the things being the politics of the day, the advent of the internet and digital news coverage, as well as the stories of three women, which this series is going to focus on: Paula Jones, Linda Tripp, and Monica Lewinsky. All three played by three amazing actresses, which we're going to get into in just a little bit. I want to try to test out week to week reviews of this series. I will be watching it week to week because it is one of my most highly anticipated series of this entire year. Let's jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the different angle that this had. A lot of people are very familiar with this story, or believe that they're familiar with the Monica Lewinsky scandal or the Whitewater scandal, or all of the different political and social issues attached to Bill Clinton's presidency. However, this series, which comes from Ryan Murphy, the creator of American Horror Story, American Crime Story, he has such a great filmography. It's fantastic, truly. But this series, he said he really wanted to focus on the three women at the center of the case, those being Paula Jones, Linda Tripp, and Monica Lewinsky, and how this story and the way this news was broken and the way that these women were portrayed in the media, how that really shaped the case. I want to specifically talk about how this pilot episode, which was titled, I'll put it on the screen, how it really portrays the status quo of all three women. Obviously, whenever you're starting a movie or a show, you kind of want to get what is normal life like for this character? What are they usually doing? What does life for them look like? And then what upends or disrupts that? This episode does a great job of using all three women and cutting between their different stories to kind of show what maybe their motivations behind certain things are, or what happened to them to kind of motivate them further throughout this series. And Ryan Murphy has always kind of had an interesting way of telling these stories in both prior seasons of American Crime Story. Specifically, the second season, the assassination of Gianni Versace, was told in a backwards format. So I was expecting some sort of kind of time manipulation here, and definitely that is true. And I like the way that things are being set up, because I previously watched The Clinton Affair, which was a 6-part docu-series on A&E about all of these collective storm of scandals that were going on in the late 90s attached to Bill Clinton's presidency. And what I think is really interesting is how this episode chooses to set up all of those little elements. Obviously, the three women setting up their relationship, how they're becoming involved in one another's cases, but it also sets up a lot of key players that are kind of on the outskirts of this story. First and foremost, we meet Hillary in the women's bathroom of the West Wing when Linda Tripp kind of bumps into her there. We also meet Kobe Smulders as Ann Coulter and some of the other lawyers that are involved there. And we meet several of these other supporting characters, which I think is a really interesting choice, because not all of them have been given names yet. Not all of them have been directly named or addressed or kind of given a reason as to why they're included in the story, which I think is a very brave choice that Ryan Murphy chooses to do in these historical dramas. But I think it honestly plays out very well, because knowing him, there's going to be a peeling back of layers of the story as we continue further in the narrative, and everything will kind of come to a point where you'll eventually understand. So if you're looking to do outside research, I do highly recommend The Clinton Affair as a very quick, succinct docuseries that goes very thorough into things without taking up too much of your time. But I do think all of this will be explained later in a way that makes sense. And I also think the key point of introducing these characters in a way that isn't clearly laying out what their story is a really brilliant way to tell the story in a way that's interpretive to the audience, because a lot of what he does in these seasons of American Crime Story is not just look at the crime itself and give a punishment of guilty or not guilty, if you will, but he likes to kind of take a look at the way the media portrayed a case, such as the O.J. Simpson trial, and how Marcia Clark was viciously attacked for being the prosecutor in the case, for her looks, for her personal life, and things like that. So Ryan Murphy really does like to explore those things in his series. Although I think all three women, Beanie Feldstein as Monica Lewinsky, I can't remember the name of the woman that plays Paula Jones, but she is also fantastic. Sarah Paulson, though, takes the cake. The way that she has physically embodied Linda Tripp, it's absolute match for match. The way she stands, the walk, and I saw an interview with Sarah Paulson at the premiere of American Crime Story Impeachment, and she was speaking about how she had to change the way she stood and walked and carried herself because the way Linda Tripp did was very different than her. Those are the kind of things that in a performance you think you wouldn't notice. You think it's so minuscule, like why even bother? But it really does make the difference here because I don't remember that is Sarah Paulson behind there. I also think one of the best elements of this story was the phone tag switcheroo at the end, with Linda Tripp picking up the phone and Monica's phone ringing, and then Linda Tripp being on the phone with the publisher and Monica being on the phone with Bill, because throughout this whole first episode, which I think is a brilliant creative choice, we don't really get the mention of Monica's relationship with Bill Clinton. He isn't expressly named. He's brought up in the Paula Jones lawsuit, but I like that this story is kind of following the actual course of events when Linda Tripp is trying to figure out who it is that Monica is seeing, even though they already have an established relationship at that point. I like that the show is presenting the story in the way that actual things were figured out, instead of just kind of jumping the gun and showing her and Bill Clinton in the first opening scene of the story. Thought that was a really great payoff at the end of the episode and a great kind of showing of what is important to these people, because Linda in this first episode is obviously being portrayed to be about the book deal and about her own safety and job security, whereas Monica, potentially naively, is thinking that things are just going to go and work themselves out and be perfect, and she's just got to bide her time and pay her dues and things are going to work out for her. So I think that's a very nice contrast of the two characters, what their motives are and who they are as people. Last but not least, just because this is just a little thing I picked up that I was just like, wow, the attention to detail is so good. One of the opening sequences involves Monica at the mall before she is apprehended by the FBI agents and Linda Tripp in the kind of food court area, and she goes to buy a magazine to pass the time before she meets up with Linda, supposedly for lunch. And what I thought was great is she picks up a magazine. It's got Courtney Cox on the cover because, of course, Friends was huge in the 90s. And then I realized that Courtney Cox plays Monica. I just thought that was a really nice touch. I am sure that someone in the props department and in production design really put some thought into there. So for that one person or team, I saw it, I loved it, I appreciate you. That, guys, is my quick little review of American Crime Story Impeachment, the first episode of the third season. Please let me know down below what you thought. And if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell, because I do a lot of reviews of a ton of different movie and television and entertainment content. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have an absolutely amazing day or night whenever you're able to watch this, and I will see you all in my very next video. Bye, y'all.